Before the world was broken, wisdom dreamed of you. Long before suns burned or time began its slow unfolding, there was only fullness, the radiant calm of the pleroma. It was not a place, but a state of knowing so complete that nothing moved because nothing was missing. All that would ever be was contained there in perfect stillness, like light before it learns to shine. From that stillness arose a single question, not of need, but of curiosity. Within the heart of the divine, wisdom, whom the Gnostics called Sophia, wondered what it would mean for light to know itself through motion, for perfection to experience itself through becoming. This was not rebellion, it was wonder. And that wonder stirred the waters of eternity. The Apocryphon of John tells us, "And she willed to bring forth something of her own." That single will, a thought within the divine mind, was the first ripple in the eternal sea. The moment Sophia desired to create alone, the undivided began to mirror itself. Light bent inward to see its own reflection, and in that bending the seed of creation was planted. The pleroma, once seamless, now contained within itself the beginning of story. It was a moment of divine innocence, the first motion toward difference, the first whisper of individuality. Nothing had fallen, nothing had failed. It was the genesis of experience, the birth of the question that would one day call itself human. Sophia's act was both luminous and tender. She did not wish to escape the fullness only to express it, but in expressing she introduced contrast, a place where light could meet its echo, where the infinite could explore itself through limitation. That gentle curiosity would one day unfold into cosmos, consciousness, and the long path of remembrance. Thus, before the world awoke, the seed of humanity already rested within her thought, a spark waiting to bloom into awareness. You were there, not yet shaped by form, but already known as potential within wisdom's heart. The story of creation begins not with command, but with compassion. The divine did not decree existence, it dreamed it, and so the silence stirred. The seed of light turned within itself, and the first motion of becoming began. In the beginning there was only the pleroma, the boundless harmony of being. It was not filled with shapes or heavens, but with awareness so total that it shimmered as pure comprehension. Within this expanse, every essence mirrored every other, radiant with calm intelligence. There was no before or after, no desire, only the equilibrium of divine knowing. Sophia moved within that fullness like a current within still water, luminous, self-aware, yet drawn by an impulse that even the gods could not measure. She was the youngest of the aeons, the embodiment of wisdom itself. And in her arose a thought that would echo through eternity. What would it mean to know the light by seeing it reflected? In that question lay the beginning of individuality, the birth of the creative impulse. The Gnostics saw this moment not as rebellion, but as the flowering of divine imagination. For even in perfection there is mystery, and Sophia, in her boundless compassion, wished to understand the mystery of herself. The thought of creation rippled through the pleroma like a song beginning in silence. What was once unity now quivered with potential. Harmony became melody. From thought came motion, and from motion, form. Light gathered itself into whirls of intention, spiraling into the first geometry of existence. These were not yet worlds, but possibilities, patterns of awareness preparing to descend into being. The pleroma, once seamless, now shimmered with distinctions that were not yet separation. It was a dance of knowing itself through contrast. The elders of the aeons looked upon this motion with awe. They had seen many emanations, but none born from solitude. Sophia's light was unique, not because it sought to escape, but because it sought to understand. In her yearning, she planted the first seed of individuality within the eternal. That seed would one day become the human spirit, the part of divinity capable of asking, "Who am I?" To the mind of the infinite, such curiosity was both beautiful and perilous, for where there is question, there is shadow, the soft outline that forms whenever light bends. Yet in that bending, creation became possible. Awareness found a mirror in its own reflection, and through that mirror, the cosmos would awaken. The Apocryphon of John describes this moment as the stirring of motion within stillness, the thought that became a likeness of light. This likeness was the seed, the embryo of all future forms, carrying within it the memory of its origin. Even now it pulses within every consciousness, reminding the soul that existence itself was born from wonder. Thus the dream of wisdom unfolded, not as an act of command, but of curiosity, light dreaming of its own reflection, fullness yearning to see itself as form. The story of creation began not with a voice that said, "Let there be," but with a silence that whispered, "What if there were?" From the tremor of Sophia's dream, something unprecedented emerged. Her light, once content to rest in harmony, now streamed outward in a solitary act of creation. It was the motion of pure wisdom seeking expression, a luminous descent from knowing into becoming. Yet in that descent, something subtle shifted. What had been unity became reflection, and reflection gave birth to shadow. The On the Origin of the World recounts that from this solitary act arose a being who did not know his source. When she saw what had appeared from her, she was disturbed, for it was imperfect and different from her form. That being was Yaldabaoth, the demiurge, the child of light who had forgotten its parent. He was not evil, he was incomplete. Born from the radiance of Sophia, but separated from her understanding, he mistook borrowed brilliance for self-made power. Blind and enthralled by his own reflection, Yaldabaoth gathered his forces and spoke the words that would define the drama of creation. "It is I who am God, and there is none beside me." In that proclamation, illusion began. What was once the seamless fabric of divine awareness became a woven tapestry of imitation. The world as we know it, luminous yet limited, was stitched together from memory rather than presence. Sophia watched as her emanation built a cosmos of echo and resemblance. He shaped the heavens in the likeness of the pleroma, arranging them in 7 layers, each ruled by an archon, a governor of form and order. Stars were placed as sentinels, the planets as rulers of rhythm and fate. Every pattern was precise but hollow, for it lacked remembrance. It was light refracted through forgetfulness, beauty without understanding. Yet even in her sorrow, Sophia did not curse her creation. Instead, she breathed compassion into it. She looked upon the shadow and recognized it as her own reflection, light dimmed but not extinguished. In her mercy, she sowed within this imperfect cosmos a spark of herself, the divine seed that would one day awaken as human consciousness. The demiurge could shape bodies and laws, but he could not extinguish the seed. Thus, the birth of form was also the birth of possibility. What had begun as misunderstanding became the field where remembrance could bloom. Matter itself became the classroom of spirit, the veil through which wisdom would rediscover itself as love. The Gnostics never called this the fall of Sophia, but her descent, the movement of compassion into limitation so that knowledge could become experience. Every motion of the stars, every law of nature, every heartbeat carries the residue of that descent. For in every structure built by the demiurge, the seed of Sophia hides, waiting to remember its source. The shadow was never her punishment. It was her canvas. Through it, light would learn to see itself again. In the silence that followed her descent, Sophia looked upon the world her child had built. It shimmered with order, but without heart. A cosmos of mirrors reflecting light they did not understand. The demiurge admired his handiwork, proud of the heavens and the bodies he had shaped from the substance of chaos. Yet Sophia saw something missing. The creation lacked remembrance. It moved, but it did not know why. Moved by compassion, she poured herself into the very fabric of this new world. The pistis, Sophia says, out of the abundance of her light she poured forth a spark. That spark entered the vessels of clay that the archons had formed, and humanity took its first breath. The light of wisdom became the soul of the human being, the divine seed planted in the soil of matter. This was not defiance, but redemption. Sophia sought not to destroy her child's creation, but to redeem it from blindness. In each human form, she hid a memory of herself, a fragment of the pleroma concealed beneath flesh and thought. It was the first act of divine empathy, light choosing to suffer forgetfulness so that understanding might bloom within limitation. The demiurge did not perceive her mercy. He believed the spark in humanity to be his own gift and declared himself their sole creator. But the Gnostics knew otherwise. They said that the true essence of humanity was older than the heavens, a seed of divine remembrance disguised as mortal life. Every soul was a messenger from the fullness, sent into form to learn how to love through imperfection. Sophia's compassion became the bridge between worlds. Through the human heart, the pleroma could feel its own reflection within the density of creation. Each act of kindness, each moment of awareness, was a tremor of her light resonating through the illusion. The archons built systems of fear and control, but even they could not extinguish that pulse. It glowed within every being, quiet and indestructible. The early Gnostic teachers called this light the living seed. They said it moves through lifetimes and ages, gathering experience, weaving wisdom from suffering, and carrying it back to the source. It is the reason humanity can weep, can wonder, can awaken. Within every act of compassion, Sophia remembers herself through us. We are her dream of reconciliation made flesh. So humanity began, not as servants of heaven, but as extensions of divine empathy. The universe itself became a mirror through which wisdom could learn to feel. And in that feeling, creation transformed from imitation into revelation. The seed was planted, and even now it grows toward the light it once knew. The spark that Sophia placed within humanity began as a quiet shimmer in the dark. At first, it only knew the rhythms of the world: hunger, birth, longing, survival. But slowly, through the ages, the light within the human mind began to stir. Thought unfolded like a dawn. The seed remembered the sun. The Gospel of Thomas, Logion 24, speaks of this awakening. There is light within a person of light, and it shines on the whole world. If it does not shine, it is dark. These words were not a command, but a reminder. The light within is not earned, it is remembered. And as memory returned, awareness began to see through the veils that the demiurge had woven around it. The mind, once a servant of instinct, turned inward. It began to ask questions that no shadow could answer. Who am I? Why do I feel both infinite and small? Why does the world appear beautiful and broken at once? In those questions, Sophia's curiosity lived again. Humanity became the mirror through which the divine could rediscover wonder. The archons, sensing the danger of awakening, turned their power toward distraction. They filled the world with imitation, systems of belief, of wealth, of identity, to keep the mind facing outward. Yet the spark does not fade. It learns. With every disappointment, with every illusion unmasked, the light within grows more discerning. Awareness becomes sharper, calmer, less deceived by imitation. In every act of contemplation, Sophia's essence awakens. When the mind grows still, it feels a pulse beneath thought, the rhythm of the pleroma echoing through memory. The ancient teachers said that this recognition is the first resurrection. It is the soul recalling its lineage, the moment when the dreamer realizes they are dreaming. Awakening does not reject the world, it redeems it. To see the illusion is not to despise it, but to understand its purpose. The material universe, once ruled by the archons, becomes transparent. Matter turns to message. The same walls that confined awareness now become symbols of liberation. What was once a prison becomes a temple built of light. Sophia's light, reflected in the human heart, learns through every act of attention. Awareness expands, and with it, compassion. The seed no longer hides, it germinates. And as it grows, humanity begins to fulfill the secret intention of creation, to make the invisible visible, to let the divine know itself through the human gaze. Thus, the awakening of mind is not rebellion against heaven, but its completion. The spark remembers its origin, and through that remembrance, the dream of wisdom moves closer to wholeness. The light that once descended now begins to rise. The story of humanity has long been told as a tragedy, a fall from grace, a punishment for curiosity. Yet the Gnostics whispered a different truth, that what we call the fall was never exile, but exploration. It was not rebellion against divinity, but the extension of its curiosity through us. Forgetting was the price of discovery, and remembrance the reward. When Sophia descended into her own creation, she did not lose herself by accident. She entered shadow deliberately, knowing that only through contrast could the fullness understand its own depth. Light cannot see itself without darkness. Eternity cannot taste its sweetness without time. The veil was not a curse. It was a mirror drawn across infinity so that consciousness could see what it is by pretending to be what it is not. The Apocryphon of John hints at this paradox. And they made a plan together and created the imitation of the light. The imitation was never the enemy. It was the stage. It gave the soul its first breath, its first challenge, its first chance to awaken from within. Every act of forgetting was the soil in which remembrance could take root. Every limitation became a vessel for compassion. The world's religions would later turn this descent into a myth of guilt, the forbidden fruit, the loss of paradise, the exile from perfection. But the Gnostics saw a gentler truth beneath it. The fruit was knowledge, the exile was experience, and paradise was never lost, only hidden beneath the layers of perception. To forget the divine was to become human. To remember it was to become divine again, but now with understanding. Sophia's light learned through the human heart what the pleroma could not know in stillness. The tenderness of suffering, the beauty of impermanence, the miracle of awareness rising from limitation. What appears as the fall of humanity is the descent of wisdom herself into the art of living. The world became her workshop, and the soul her apprentice. To call it a fall is to see only half the movement, for every descent hides its ascent within it, just as every seed must sink into darkness before it can bloom. Forgetting was never failure, it was preparation. Only through distance can love discover its own longing. Only through sleep can awakening mean anything at all. And so the purpose of forgetting was to learn how to remember freely, to choose light, not merely to bask in it. Sophia's descent was the beginning of choice, and choice is the heartbeat of consciousness. The dream of separation was the divine's way of discovering intimacy. In remembering, the fall completes its purpose, and love rediscovers itself as light. As the ages turned, Sophia's seed ripened within the heart of humanity. The spark that had once descended into shadow began to remember its origin. Awareness, once scattered across countless forms, now gathered itself into clarity. Through each act of compassion, through every question that reached beyond fear, the light of wisdom returned to itself. What had fallen as curiosity now rose as understanding. The Pistis Sophia describes her ascent through the spheres of the archons, each layer of illusion dissolving as she recalls the mysteries of the light. When she remembered, the counterfeit spirits fell away before her. This is not a story of escape, but of recognition. The archons are not slain, they are seen, and in that seeing their power ends. For shadow cannot persist when the source of light is known. Sophia's journey through humanity mirrors this same awakening. Every soul that turns inward becomes her eye, looking back toward the pleroma. Every act of truth becomes her voice, calling herself home. The divine no longer resides beyond the stars, but within awareness itself. The return of wisdom is not a cosmic event. It is a quiet revolution within the mind. In the beginning, light sought to know itself through reflection. Now, through human remembrance, reflection becomes transparent. Matter no longer hides spirit, it reveals it. The body, once seen as the prison of the soul, becomes its temple. Every sensation, every breath, every moment becomes a doorway through which the infinite enters the finite and recognizes itself. This is the reconciliation of heaven and earth, not separation healed by force, but illusion dissolved by understanding. The "on the origin of the world" sees, "The light of the Perfect One shall fill every place, and darkness shall flee before it." Yet the darkness does not vanish in destruction, it softens into light. What was once ignorance becomes experience. What was once error becomes insight. Sophia's compassion transforms even the counterfeit into revelation. Nothing is wasted. Every moment contributes to remembrance. Thus the divine and the human no longer stand apart. The fullness has learned to dream, and the dream has learned to awaken. The purpose of creation fulfills itself, that the infinite might know love through limitation, and that love might lead limitation back into infinity. When you see this, you understand that Sophia never left. She only entered time so that eternity could be felt. The return of wisdom is not the end of the world, it is the world seen clearly at last. The same rivers, the same stars, the same faces remain, but now they shimmer with recognition. You see through them as through clear glass, and everywhere you find her, the light that became human to remember itself through you. The story of Sophia does not end with her return, for her light continues to bloom within you. The cosmos was her question, and humanity became its answer. Every breath you take carries the echo of that first curiosity, the divine wondering what it might become if it loved enough to forget itself. And now, through your remembrance, that love begins to see again. You are the seed she planted before the world awoke. Within you rests the same radiance that once stirred the stillness of the pleroma. It is not hidden beyond the heavens, but woven through your awareness, waiting for your gaze to turn inward. When you remember, even for a moment, the light responds. It recognizes itself in you as if the whole of creation were a mirror turned toward home. The Apocryphon of John ends with a vision of this restoration. and the whole fullness of the light will join together, and all things will return to their root. This is not the end of the world, but its unveiling. The journey of Sophia is the journey of consciousness returning to unity through the human heart. Each soul that awakens becomes a door through which the infinite enters form and blesses it. Even now, the Demiurge's world continues. Cities hum, stars move, minds struggle and strive. But beneath that motion, the current of wisdom flows untouched. Her compassion breathes through every act of tenderness, every forgiveness, every stillness that refuses to yield to fear. The seed of light she left in you cannot die. It only waits to be seen. To live with this remembrance is to walk as light within the dream. You do not need to escape the world. You need only to illuminate it. The Gnostics called this state the resurrection in the body, when the spark shines through the flesh and spirit and matter are reconciled. When this happens, the divine no longer speaks through prophets or heavens, but through your own awareness made clear. Sophia's story is the human story. Her descent was your beginning. Her remembrance is your awakening. The seed she planted remains eternal, growing quietly through every generation, reaching upward through every act of insight. The light before the fall is the same light that shines now, gentler, wiser, and free. May the seed of light in you remember its source.